What creates type 2 diabetes? Because there is some confusion on whether it's excess sugars or excess fats, or what creates it?
Well, I think that you're right. There's a lot of misunderstanding about this,
Mm,
and I think the assumption is that it's sugar, is
mm,
that these people get diabetes because of sugar, but it's actually their total dietary pattern,
sure.
and fat plays a greater role than sugar does. And one
Mm,
of the reasons is that diabetics, we know, are very good at storing something we call intramyocellular fat. This is fat inside the cells. Well, we all have some fat in our cells. We use it as a backup source of energy.
mhm.
But diabetics are really good at storing this fat, and it gums up the cells and it interferes with the action of insulin escorting glucose into the cell.
Mhm.
And so the glucose levels build up in the bloodstream, and the pancreas pumps out more and more insulin, and that's how you end up with a diabetic. What's really interesting is that within just a couple of weeks of adopting a plant based diet, all that fat comes pouring out of the cells and into the bloodstream
Yeah.
and gets eliminated, and the cells become more receptive to the action of insulin, and eventually the diabetes goes away. When I say eventually, I'm not talking about 3 or 4 years. I'm talking about within a fairly short period of time, these people become former diabetics.
Yeah. Awesome. Can you give us an overview of the diet? What would be incorporated in that?
Yeah, it's a plant-centered diet, and we tell people to choose their foods from the four major food groups, which are fruit, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. So
Mhm.
you're eating lots of potatoes and beans and rice and vegetables and rice and great big salads and steamed veggies like kale and mustard greens and asparagus and broccoli and fruit. And those are the foods that you're essentially living on. Very low in fat, getting the oils out of the diet, which is a major source of fat in most people's diets. High in fiber. We have people tell us all the time this is a moving experience when they start this diet, and getting rid of the processed and refined junk that people are eating. A lot of times they don't even realize that it isn't food; it's just processed stuff. And drinking lots of fresh filtered water every day, staying properly hydrated. And then one thing I always like to add, because we want people to make the decision to do this for the rest of their life, is that it's not all about you can't ever have any chocolate or you can't ever have a piece of cake. It's really making sure that you understand the difference between food and a treat.
Mhm.
So Christmas morning is a good time for cookies.
Mhm.
Today, not so much. And Valentine's Day is a good time for a couple of pieces of chocolate. This afternoon, yeah, not so much. All right. Most people are treating themselves way too much, and they're not reserving those things for holidays and special occasions. So you get that out of the daily diet, and you live on these whole foods.
Yeah. And are there percentages that you recommend? Percentages of fat, percentage of protein,
Yeah,
carbohydrates?
general guidelines. I think that humans function best on a diet that's someplace around 70 to 75, even 80% carbohydrate.
Hmm.
And of course, by carbohydrate, we're not talking about pastries here. We're talking about sweet potatoes, black beans, and broccoli, right?
Yeah.
And apples and papaya. So very heavy in carbohydrate consumption. Protein at about 10%. Fat at some place between 10 and 15%. 15% being a good upper range for people who are in good health, and that 10-11% range for somebody who has diabetes or coronary artery disease, and maybe their health is in a precarious enough state that they really need to limit their fat.
Okay.